What's going on, Star Wars fans? Welcome to Star Wars Doctrine. The book Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray recently came out, and I just finished reading it. So I picked out 10 fun facts and tidbits that I thought I would go over with you guys. Heads up, if you are wanting to stay away from spoilers from this book, I will be talking about some in this video, so you have been warned. Number 1, Qui Gon received an offer to join the Jedi Council. So this was a really cool part of the book. And more towards the beginning, Qui Gon is brought before the council, and he doesn't know why. And they offer him a seat on the council. It's actually Mace Windu that extends the offer because one of the other Jedi Masters is retiring from the council. And Qui Gon's very surprised. It's kind of cool to see because he's like, "I thought you guys don't really agree with the way I do things." And they say, "Well, we don't, but it might be nice to have a different perspective on the council, and we do know you're wise," and everything like that. So, very interesting. As the book goes on, it talks about how Qui-Gon's considering the offer to join the council while he goes on his next mission with his Padawan Obi Wan. And one of the things that plays into a factor, which is kind of cool, is that apparently when you join the council, they don't want you to have a Padawan because it's so much work. And it's very rare that they allow someone on the council to train at the same time because of how much dedication the council takes. So they let him know that Obi-Wan would be transferred to another master if he does accept the invitation. And anyways, it's kind of an interesting plot line in the book because Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan apparently aren't getting along very well. They've been matched together for I think 3 or 4 years. And 4 years I think it is. Obi-Wan's 17 at this time, and they just haven't really connected, but this mission kind of takes you over how they do connect, and because of it, plays in the fact that at the end of the book, Qui-Gon turns down the invitation to join the council, which is why in episode 1, we see that he obviously isn't on the council. And Obi-Wan even says the line, "If you would just follow the code, then you would be on the council," which this book really gives good reasoning to why that line was said, because the entire mission is about how Qui-Gon kind of goes against the council's guidance. Number 2, the prophecy of the Chosen One is finally revealed, which is something that for literally 20 years since The Phantom Menace came out, Star Wars fans have been wondering exactly what it is. And Qui-Gon talks about all the prophecies came from the ancient mystics. So whatever exactly those are, that's where the prophecy did come from. And it's talked about very interestingly about how a lot of the Jedi don't really take the prophecies as real, just more as like how those ancient mystics perceive stuff in their own time, but maybe they didn't actually apply to today's life. But Qui-Gon starts to realize that and believe that they actually are real prophecies that will come to pass through the Force. It's really interesting to see that transition that he makes, but let me read you the prophecy. The official prophecy of the Chosen One says, "Only through sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done to the Nameless. The danger of the past is not past, but sleeps in an egg. When the egg cracks, it will threaten the galaxy entire. When the Force itself sickens, past and future must split and combine. A Chosen One shall come, born of no father, and through him will ultimate balance in the Force be restored." So, very interesting. Qui-Gon was obviously very aware of this prophecy when he found Anakin, which is a couple years later in The Phantom Menace. And, so through this book, he obviously already had an obsession with the prophecies since he was a Padawan. But in this book, he really starts to get a belief that these prophecies are real and will come true, and that the Force has a will. The Force's will for him is to explore these prophecies a little more. And obviously we know that's because eventually he was the one tasked with finding Anakin, the Chosen One. But to hear it in words is quite interesting, a lot different than I expected. Obviously a lot you can take from that. I thought it was interesting that it talks about that there will be a sacrifice of many Jedi. For those who believed in the prophecy, it had to have been kind of scary to think about that. And obviously we see that it pretty much comes true to every word in that prophecy through Anakin. So pretty interesting. Number 3, there is a Jedi introduced named Rael Averross, who's a very big character in this book, and he happens to be Count Dooku's apprentice before Qui-Gon was Count Dooku's apprentice. So that was really interesting to see the relationship that Qui-Gon had with him in this book. Rael is a very interesting Jedi. He's been off on another planet, far from the Jedi Order for a long time, which is where Obi Wan and Qui-Gon go for their mission, and they end up helping Rael out. But Rael, being away from the Order for so long, he's kind of adapted a lot of interesting habits, and let's just say he bends the Jedi code to his liking. In fact, it actually goes over his how he believes in casual sex. As long as you don't have a commitment, as long as you're not actually caring for the girl, then it's totally okay. And so he's having there's actually a moment where Qui-Gon walks in and there's a girl in his bed and stuff. And anyways, he likes to live on the line of the Jedi code. He doesn't follow it very strictly. And pretty interesting to hear about that, because I actually always thought of that myself. I was like, okay, the Jedi are forbidden to love. There's not supposed to be attachment. But where does that put them in as far as like a sexual life goes? So apparently most of the Jedi thought that you weren't supposed to have a sex life or have any form of really any connection like that at all, even if it didn't have any attachment. And this book kind of answered that, even though Rael believes opposite. Most of the Jedi believe that that's how it's supposed to be. So he's quite the wild guy. There's lots of scenes in there where he's drinking and even having smoking some death sticks. So it's pretty interesting. Number 4 is the Kyber Crystals, which is a lot to do with what this book is based around. There's these crystals that are being mined that look very similar to Kyber crystals. In fact, to most people, they look like Kyber crystals, and most people would think that they are Kyber crystals if they didn't know the difference. And they're called Kyber crystals. Basically, they can develop produce a laser that is strong enough to block a lightsaber, but not necessarily strong enough to just not quite as strong as a lightsaber, I guess. So apparently it produces an orange blade if it's in your lightsaber, and that blade is still powerful, but not as powerful as a true lightsaber Kyber crystals blade. But the Kyber crystals are being mined to make these shields that can go around people. You can't hardly tell that these shields are there, but they block lightsabers. So that's why they're being mined, is so that they can wear these shields that block lightsabers so that they can be immune to Jedi, basically. Number 5 is that Maz Kanata actually makes an appearance, a very small appearance, but in a flashback in the book, Qui-Gon, young Padawan Qui-Gon, is talking with Rael Averross, and over a a hologram communication type of system, and he asks Rael where he is, and Rael says that he's on Takodana in this little cantina bar thing, and he's smoking a death stick. And then Qui-Gon sees in the background of the hologram a orange small alien with big old goggles that's Maz Kanata serving Rael Averross drinks. So it's kind of a fun little throwback to, Maz, who we obviously will meet many, many years in the future of this book. But it got me thinking, how old is Maz if she was around way back before Phantom Menace? Because this book, I think, is 5 or 6 years before Phantom Menace. Turns out Maz is 1,000 years old. So pretty cool that she made an appearance, even if it was just minor. Number 6 was this book, a good part of the plot involved freeing slaves. So Qui-Gon really starts to get involved with this group called Zerka, who enslaves people and has them do work for them around the galaxy. And Qui-Gon really starts to take an issue with the fact that, and Obi-Wan as well, with the fact that slaves are allowed, even though the Republic has outlawed it. Zerka technically is not part of the Republic, doesn't have to follow those rules, and they operate within the Republic because they have agreements to not be infringed upon by the Republic. So bothers Qui-Gon a lot that they're slaves, and they actually meet one who is an escapee, and she talks about what she went through. And so it kind of plants that seed in Qui-Gon to where he's bothered by slavery, which obviously leads up to Tatooine, him wanting to free Anakin and everything like that. But of course he has to follow his mandate as a Jedi, and he can't get too involved, but he does what he can. Number 7 was an interesting fact about Yoda, and it's that Yoda actually voted against offering Qui-Gon the position on the council. So obviously they took a vote, and Obi Wan actually finds out that Yoda voted against Qui-Gon being offered the seat on the council. And it was very interesting. And Obi Wan actually kind of, at this point in the book, takes it personal. He's like, why wouldn't Yoda want my master, And he started to get more respect for Qui-Gon and learn a little more about him by then. And they've developed a better relationship. So he actually kind of takes it personal. He's kind of upset that Yoda voted against Qui-Gon. And then number 8, Qui-Gon has a vision that leads him to believing in prophecies more. So I already talked about that a little bit, but there's a vision that Qui-Gon has where he basically sees the plot line of the book unfolding, where he sees an attack, and because of this attack that he sees, he warns the council that we shouldn't go through with the ceremony where this attack's going to take place because I had this vision. But almost everybody on the council, Koth being one of the main ones, is saying that it's ridiculous that Qui-Gon's suggesting this, and that seeing the future is of the dark side, because if you seek to know the future, that's a path to the dark side. And obviously we know Yoda warns about that a lot in the movies to Anakin, but Qui-Gon argues that I'm not trying to see the future, the Force just gave me this vision, I didn't ask for it. Anyways, the majority of the council is actually anti-Qui-Gon believing in this prophecy. And the prophecy does come true. The attack that he saw happens, and Qui-Gon was a little more prepared because of his vision, but the council ended up kind of having to eat their words after it. But during the course of arguing with Qui-Gon is part of when they really started to believe he was going outside of his mandate following this vision. But the vision confirms to Qui-Gon that he has a path with these prophecies that he's supposed to follow, and that's why part of the reason he chooses not to join the council, because this vision allowed him to know that, hey, seeing the future is possible, and these ancient mystics were led by the Force, so I need to explore these a little more. And obviously he was correct, because he was led to Anakin. Number 9 was that Dooku had turned dark side before Qui-Gon's death, which is something that's been talked about a lot in the Star Wars world. People have been wondering for a long time when exactly, we know he left the Order, but when did he exactly leave? When did he actually turn to the dark side after leaving as well? And apparently he had gone to the dark side well before the Phantom Menace, which is very interesting if you think about it. It's confirmed in this book because Rael and Dooku talk at the end, Rael Averross, and Dooku basically says to join him in his path on the dark side, and Rael actually says, no, I'm going to go back and start living the Jedi Code a little bit better and trying to be better. That's what the Force wants me to do. And so it's very interesting because we know in the Phantom Menace, obviously Darth Maul was Sidious's apprentice. So it makes you wonder then when Dooku became Sidious's apprentice, maybe Sidious had both being trained simultaneously, we just don't know about it. Or perhaps Dooku was studying the dark side by himself and then caught Sidious's attention after Maul was killed. It's kind of shaky on how that all shakes out, but I definitely hope there will be more exploration of it. There's a Dooku book that just came out, so maybe that gives us a little more answers. And then number 10 was really interesting. It's Rael and Qui-Gon talking about the prophecies, because Rael is trying to convince Qui-Gon that the prophecies are just a bunch of nonsense and they don't really mean anything, kind of like the rest of the Jedi are trying to tell Qui-Gon. And Rael says, I want you to think about what the prophecy of the Chosen One would mean. It would mean that there would be as much dark side as there is light side. And then he asks Qui-Gon, do you really want that? Which is kind of an interesting topic, because that's something that's heavily debated in the Star Wars community. I've seen it on our page as well. talking about whether balance in the Force would mean all light side or whether it means as much dark side as it does light side. So Rael says that the way he interprets it, at least, is that it would be as much dark side as light side. Basically, the way you could look at it is 2 Jedi, 2 Sith, like Obi Wan and Yoda, Vader and Sidious, and that's kind of what we're roughly left with at the end of the Jedi Purge. So definitely interesting on what balance really means, but that's Rael's take. Qui-Gon doesn't argue with him, so kind of made me think that maybe that is what they were going for. Maybe that is what balance means, but once again, I think it's still left up for interpretation. So those are the 10 facts that I found from Master and Apprentice that I felt like would be fun to share with you guys. If you had any other interpretations or if you read the book and have any other comments, think I missed anything really fun, go ahead and leave it in the comments. Hope you guys have a great week. May the Force be with you. Don't forget to like and subscribe because
it is your destiny.